Hey everyone, I'm Amber J. Adams, and you are watching the Fab Life Project show where we talk about careers, travel, and lifestyle design for millennials who are determined to live life on their own terms. If you're watching this live, thank you so much. If you're catching me on the replay, thank you. I have a good show planned for you all today. So I wanted to talk more about or explore self care, but not the self care that we typically tend to talk about. Instead, I want to go a little bit deeper. So, going beyond the traditional self care definition of eating right and exercising and taking long bowl baths, although all of those things are super important. Got my notes here with me today because I want to make sure that I don't miss anything. So if you see me looking down, that's what I'm doing. But anyway, I had a very kind of interesting week. So earlier this week, I think it was Wednesday, for the first time in a very long time, I actually shared a little bit about my romantic life, which I don't tend to do. No one has seen pictures of anyone that I've been dating, a boyfriend or anything like that in like the last few years. I'm typically really pretty much a very private person, but I, I'm happy. So I guess, I wanted to share that little piece with the world. But also, when I was thinking about, sharing those pictures, what really got me thinking and what I really wanted to explore was the journey that I had to take to really get to that place. And although, I'm mentioning this in terms of my romantic relationship, this is really applicable to whatever type of transformation you want to make for yourself that requires you to take a step back, to reflect, and to go a little bit deeper than maybe you've had to go before. Hi, shout out to those watching live. So cha 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 cha. How about we talk about how Beyonce decided she was also gonna launch her world tour that day? We'll just say that she was inspired as well. But first of all, let me thank everyone. So if you're watching this and you saw those pictures and you left a comment, a heart, all those good things, thank you so much. It was very sweet. We really appreciated all the love. But I want to go deeper into the caption that I had with that. So, yes, I spent 2020 and 2021 pretty much very isolated, kind of like we all did. I had moved, let me set the scene for you. I had moved back to Memphis. So in 2019, I took time off to travel. I left New York. I did my thing, thank goodness, in 2019. And by 2020, I came back home to Memphis where I had not lived as an adult ever, pretty much. Like I left Memphis when I was 18, when I went to college, and maybe, with the exception of like a couple of months here and there, I had not really been in the city for a longer stretch of time. And so when I got back to Memphis, I knew, that I was going to have to spend some time there, but I didn't know it was going to be the amount of time that it ended up being. That was going to end up being a year and a half, and that year and a half would be spent pretty much on my own because we had this global health crisis going on, so there was no travel, there were no really kind of major distractions, and I got to spend a lot of time with just me. And in the process of spending that time with myself, I've always been someone who's liked to journal. I've kept a journal since I was like 11 years old. So always kind of documenting things. But it was during this time that I really started to reflect on and think about what I really want more of in my life. And that was in like all categories. But in this instance, I definitely thought about what am I looking for in a partner? And, these were conversations that I had been having with my friends, with my girlfriends, with my friends who are guys, because, our generation being in your 30s and late 30s as we are now, it has been such a tremendous shift, I think, from what we thought we would have romantically, what we maybe saw our parents do. At my age, my dad was very much married and had two kids, and we were kind of like, I mean, by this time, like seven, like we were out doing things. And so to be, so far down the line and to be still, out there looking and thinking about how you wanted to partner, we're just venturing into a space that looks so radically different that I think we honestly, once again, don't have a blueprint for. And because we managed to be so busy, and I think during this time that we're in, we have so many distractions. When do we ever really get a chance to kind of sit with ourselves and think and say, you know what, let me take a step back and really think about what I want? Not what I'm seeing on TV, not what I'm seeing on Instagram, but what I actually want. And I think this is just really, applies to so many different areas of our life. But yeah. So anyway, I went into a mode of deep reflection. And one of the first things that I had to do was really get a sense of awareness. And I talk about this through the framework of awareness, choice, and transformation, which is a big part of the work that I also do as a coach, because everything just kind of starts there. It starts with this awareness. It starts with saying, who am I? Almost like at the root, who am I? And really gaining some awareness around, where I had kind of been, where things had happened before. And I don't mean to be vague, and I want it to be more applicable than to just relationships. So I'm kind of like giving the higher level overview. But in my sense of awareness, I had to really think about changes that I needed to make, things that I had been ignoring, and feelings that I had been shutting down. So, one of the things that I think happens as we have progressed on our journey through our 30s and, really looking 40 dead in the face, is that because what we are experiencing is so outside of the line of what we were told our lives would look like, I think it has become harder for us to really express and share some of those feelings around what we want, because it starts to feel like almost something's wrong with you. And, we know that's not the case. And I think that's super important to say. Sorry, the light is shifting, clouds are rolling by. But it is a thing. And so I had to really open myself up to being aware around, actually accessing my feelings, actually asking myself, how did I feel? What did I want? What were things that I had maybe neglected, that I hadn't been paying attention to? Because there were quite a few things that I was sweeping under the rug. And like some of the things that I found were really around kind of my, in some ways needs for hyper independence, because I had to grow up and be really independent at an early age, for a couple of various reasons. But just how did this impact me? And I think for me, being in Memphis and doing this deeper introspection was super powerful, because I felt grounded in a way that I don't think I would have if I were anywhere else, because this was my home. This is the place that I was from. This is where I was born. This was where I was raised. This was where so many memories were for me. And also a space where I honestly just needed to do some healing as well. So once I got that sense of awareness and I started going deeper, it kind of put me on this path where now I had some choices to make. So looking at that awareness, the choice, and transformation, I got into the space where I was like, okay, so I had to make the choice that I was actually going to invest in changing and moving my narrative forward, and asking myself, well, what does this look like? Right. So I'm really deep off into personal development and personal care. And I've never been hesitant to have therapists. I've had therapists off and on for quite some time. I definitely advocate for anyone, check in. You gotta, the same way you would take care of any other part of your body, take care of your mentals as well. And so for me, working with a therapist was really powerful, because there were things that I think I was just really starting to discover about myself, and that I hadn't done that deeper examination. And it was super helpful for me to have a thought partner during that process. The other thing was I worked with a coach. So obviously I believe in coaching. I'm getting a certification in coaching and career coaching, but also, life coaching as well. They all kind of go together to some degree. But coaching for me was super imperative, was super, super helpful. because it does something different for you than a therapist does. Like therapy is really looking at the past, or you can stay and you can look at the past, but in coaching, what we're really doing is meeting you where you are right now and saying, okay, how can we move forward? If you have a good coach, that is. But I did that, and I also read a lot of books. I listened to a lot of podcasts. And I really appreciated learning more about relationships from a scientific standpoint. So I don't think we're ever really taught how to do, the relationship thing. And we're never really taught, and this is kind of almost any relationship, either with yourself or with, the relationship that you might have with your career, that you might have with your dreams. Things are just kind of floating out there and you're kind of left to try to figure it out on your own or pick up context clues from media and other people. But there was something to be said for learning about how we actually foster deeper connections as individuals, um, how things have changed as far as gender roles go, just so much stuff that for me, I love human development. I love science in that way. So it's super fun to do, but it's something that I don't think we give ourselves enough space to do. So that's something that I would definitely recommend for anyone. Thank you all once again for tuning in live. I see you. I appreciate you. Is really digging deeper, because that's what it's all about. It's taking that step and digging deeper and saying, okay, how can I learn more about this? How can I learn more about myself? What is it that I need to almost excavate for myself? So got my awareness going on, have my choice going on. And this, is happening over a longer period of time. But again, it led me to the place of kind of transformation, and what transformation looks like for me, because this is different for everybody. What transformation looks like for me was really being more vulnerable, but being vulnerable in a way where I wasn't getting caught up in the ROI, so the return on investment of that vulnerability, meaning that I was figuring out how to be more open with my feelings. Like I'm very open with my thoughts. I'll tell you what I think about anything, but I'm not always as open with how I feel about something, especially if it's something that requires a kind of a deeper level of communication, or a deeper level of, just really sharing all my feels, right? And so I started to get more comfortable with it by actually doing it. So we know that everybody you date, every job that you have, anything that you might try isn't necessarily going to work out per se, but it doesn't mean that you don't still get an opportunity to learn something or to kind of flex a bit of a muscle. And so that was one of the things that started happening for me around 2021, early 2022 as well, as just really getting out there and kind of flexing what I had learned and the skills that I had been practicing, building up, and actually learning more about. Sorry, this is live, so anything could happen. The other thing that was really important for me was redefining what intention meant. And I actually think this is probably one of the most important things that I would say today. Redefining what intention meant. So you can't be this age, you can't be today years old and not have heard about dating with intention, or really doing anything with intention. We're all in the space these days, which is lovely, where we are talking more about being intentional about how we live, being purposeful, being intentional about the things that we do, the things that we pursue. And so people talk about dating with intention, and it's a big thing, kind of like the dating gurus and on the Instagrams and like all the places. And what I want to say about the intention part of it is that whose intentions are you trying to live up to? And I think you have to really stop and ask yourself that. Whose intentions? Because what you want may not look like what somebody else wants, what this person wants, what your best friend says you should have, what your cousin said you should have, all of those different things. We're all getting a lot of inputs, but we have to stop and ask ourselves, what does this actually mean to me? Does this even look like what I want? What's my intention? And so that for me was one of the biggest things was like, okay, well, if I'm going to so-called date with intention, if I'm going to be living my life with intention, it really has to be on my terms, and it has to be the way that I really, really defined it to be. Because I think, we're all in this space where we're looking for direction, we're looking outward, we're looking externally for these things, but we have to make the time to look internally and ask ourselves, what do I want? Is this what I want? What does this even look like? Because, we get kind of used to just pushing forward. And this is in so many areas of our life. We just push forward, we just keep going, keep going. But we have to stop and say, what do I want? I think that's probably the most important thing that we can do. So, yeah, that's the show that I have for y'all today. I hope that you enjoyed this. I'll be continuing this conversation in my newsletter. I do a newsletter like every other Sunday, maybe sometimes every Sunday, depending on what's going on, called the Sunday Reset. And my goal with that is really to just be a breath of fresh air in your inbox as you're getting ready to think about how you take on and approach the week. I share videos, I share music that's inspiring me, maybe articles that I have seen, and just really building a sense of community there as well. And also, I'm excited to announce that I'm looking for guests to join me on the show. I've been sliding into some DMs over the last few weeks and just really getting in touch with people that I know who I think would be amazing to share with you all, who have really interesting stories, people who exemplify being determined to live their life on their own terms. So if there are people that you know out there that you've seen that they fall into that millennial category, tag them for me, email me, let me know. I would love, love, love to bring them on the show. And this is all genders, all orientations. We are very inclusive here at the Fab Life Project. So yeah, but thank you all so much for joining me. I'm seeing comments coming in. Oh, okay. Allison, you asked a really good question. How do you make time to sit with yourself when you are so busy? Great question. I might actually turn that into a Instagram post. I love that. One of the things that I think is important about making time to sit with yourself when you are so busy is you got to kind of stop and ask yourself, what are all these things I'm busy with? Because I think we have to be intentional first on the front end about what we're actually spending our time on. So if you take a time audit and you see that a lot of the things that you're busy with either aren't serving you, maybe there are things that could wait to some other time that aren't as important. I think it's really about getting in touch with yourself first to think about, okay, of all the things, kind of like, I love to use food analogies. If you go to a buffet, you got one little plate, right? Everything can't get on your plate. It's just not going to happen. So you're going to have to think about what actually needs to be there, what feels, more, I guess what's curious for you, what are the things that feel good, what should really be on your plate. So yeah, but anyway, hope that was helpful. Little tidbit at the end. Thank you all so much to everyone who